"Don't touch my car," the billionaire shouted at the homeless black man, not knowing this stranger was about to save his $4.2 million hypercar and change his entire worldview. Smoke poured from the Quantum Apex's engine in the industrial district as tech titan Anthony Wright frantically dialed his phone. Nobody answered. The crowd grew. The proprietary engine, unfixable outside the factory, continued its death rattle. "Sir, your quantum thrust cooling system has a micro-fracture in the secondary loop," said the disheveled man, approaching with hands slightly raised. "I can fix it." Anthony's finger hovered over the security number. How could this man possibly know about technology so classified the manufacturer wouldn't even acknowledge it existed? What hidden genius was standing before him, and why was he living on the streets? In the next 60 seconds, everything Anthony believed about talent, worth, and judgment would shatter completely. Thomas Johnson hadn't always lived on the streets. 3 years ago, he designed revolutionary cooling systems that transformed aerospace technology and saved countless lives. Now he slept under the open sky, invisible to the tech executives who rushed past without a glance. The morning had started like any other. Thomas woke at dawn in his carefully hidden spot behind the abandoned machine shop near Tech Row. He folded his tarp with military precision, a habit from his engineering days when precision meant survival. His routine was methodical. Wash up at the public restroom, brush his teeth, and head to the library as soon as it opened. Knowledge remained his one connection to his former life. Thomas had been watching the distinctive Quantum Apex for weeks. These hypercars occasionally glided through the neighborhood on their way to the exclusive tech campus. He recognized the engine's unique purr. He should, considering he helped design its predecessor during his brief consultancy at Aerotech Industries, before everything fell apart. An MIT graduate with 3 engineering degrees, holder of 7 patents that generated millions for companies that no longer acknowledged his existence. The irony wasn't lost on Thomas. He could recite complex thermodynamic equations, but couldn't get past a hiring manager's prejudiced gaze. Overqualified, they said, when they bothered to interview him. Not a cultural fit, they muttered when his credentials couldn't be denied. The real reasons hung unspoken in the air. A black man from the wrong side of town. No permanent address. A gap in his employment history after the false accusations that had destroyed his career. Thomas maintained his dignity despite it all. He volunteered teaching science to kids at the homeless shelter 3 nights a week. He read discarded tech journals found in recycling bins outside company headquarters. He kept his mind sharp, despite a system designed to dull it. This morning, Thomas had noticed something wrong with the hypercar before it even pulled to the curb. The sound was off, a subtle irregularity in the engine's rhythm that only someone intimately familiar with its design would recognize. The microfracture was developing in the exact spot the original blueprints had predicted weakness. Thomas had flagged this in his report years ago, but his warnings had been brushed aside by executives eager to meet production deadlines. Now, one of those executives stood before a smoking, multi-million-dollar testament to Thomas's ignored expertise. Thomas approached cautiously. He'd learned the hard way that his help wasn't always welcome, especially from those who judged books by their covers. His worn clothes and unkempt beard typically triggered security calls faster than his engineering insights triggered respect. He saw recognition flicker in Anthony Wright's eyes, not of Thomas as a person, but of Thomas as a threat. The billionaire's hand tightened around his phone. Thomas knew that gesture well. He'd seen it countless times over the past 3 years. What Anthony couldn't possibly know was that Thomas had once been invited to present at the same tech conferences where Anthony had been a keynote speaker. Their paths had nearly crossed 5 years ago, before Thomas's life imploded over accusations later proven false, but not before his reputation was irreparably damaged. The tech world had a short memory for vindication, but a long one for scandal. Fell mutter. The smoke pattern told Thomas everything. The color and density revealed exactly which components were failing. He could fix it with basic tools and knowledge that apparently hadn't reached the current engineering team. Something compelled him forward despite knowing the likely reception. Maybe it was professional pride. Maybe it was the rare opportunity to prove his worth. Or maybe it was simply that Thomas Johnson, despite everything life had thrown at him, remained a problem solver at heart. Anthony Wright had just ended another fruitless call. Frustration etched across his face as the gathering crowd whispered and pointed at the smoking luxury vehicle. The billionaire's reputation was on the line as much as his investment. Thomas took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Sir, I know what's wrong with your car," he said, keeping his voice steady and professional. "Your quantum thrust cooling system has a microfracture in the secondary loop." The words that came next would set in motion a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. The tension escalated quickly. "Step back from the vehicle, please," Anthony said, not even looking Thomas in the eye. His voice carried the practiced authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. The crowd of onlookers had doubled in size. Phone cameras pointed at the spectacle of the smoking hypercar. Anthony Wright, tech wonderkind and founder of Nexus Innovations, stranded alongside his $4.2 million status symbol, trending Twitter material within minutes. "Sir, I really can help," Thomas persisted, maintaining a respectful distance. "That specific model has a known issue with the quantum thrust cooling system, the secondary loop." "How would you know anything about this car?" Anthony cut him off, finally looking directly at Thomas. His gaze took in the worn clothes, the unkempt appearance, the reusable grocery bag that contained Thomas's worldly possessions. His expression shifted from frustration to dismissal in an instant. Thomas met his gaze steadily. "Because I helped design the prototype cooling system it's based on." Anthony's phone call to Dr. Eleanor Chen changed everything. Her voice on speaker rang clear. "Thomas Johnson? Is that really you?" "My God, Anthony, if he says he can fix it, let him. He's the most brilliant thermal engineer I've ever worked with. His patents are the foundation of half our spacecraft cooling systems." The crowd gasped. The security guards who moments earlier were ready to drag Thomas away now looked at him with something approaching respect. Even Reynolds, the security chief, shifted uneasily. Anthony ended the call slowly, his eyes locked on Thomas. "I owe you an apology." "You owe me the chance to finish what I started," Thomas replied calmly. "And those pencils your guard brought." The guard quickly handed over the Stettler Mars Lumograph 8B pencils. Thomas broke one open with precision, sliding out the graphite core. His hands moved with practiced confidence, transforming scrap into salvation. The crowd fell silent. Thomas mixed graphite dust with the emergency sealant from Anthony's repair kit. His voice stayed steady as he explained each step. The graphite particles align with the coolant alloy's microstructure. Bonded under pressure, this compound seals fractures at a molecular level. Temporary, yes, but effective. Anthony leaned closer, fascinated despite himself. "And you improvised this? From pencil lead?" "Engineering is about solving problems with the resources at hand," Thomas replied. The hypercar's diagnostic system beeped. 6 minutes to critical failure. Anthony's security guards positioned their flashlights, illuminating the open engine bay. Dozens of phone cameras recorded. The billionaire watched with growing awe as the homeless man he had dismissed as a nuisance became a surgeon at work. Thomas's calm precision contrasted the crowd's rising tension. Coolant hissed softly as he vented contaminated fluid. He guided the iridescent liquid into a container fashioned from the repair kit's case. $20,000 worth, Thomas murmured. "We'll save 60%. Anthony shook his head in disbelief. "You even know the coolant's cost?" "I helped develop it." Warnings flashed across the hypercar's display. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. Thomas ignored the countdown, his hands steady. He injected the improvised sealant into the microfracture, then secured the panel with deliberate care. "Start the engine," he instructed. Anthony hesitated. "If this goes wrong." "Start it." The billionaire pressed ignition. The quantum apex roared to life. Smoke vanished. The diagnostic readout shifted. System stabilizing. Quantum thrust cooling functional. Performance limited to 70%. Service recommended. The crowd erupted in cheers. Anthony stared at the screen in disbelief. Impossible. The manufacturer swore this couldn't be fixed outside the lab. "The manufacturer complicates repairs to preserve their monopoly," Thomas said simply. If you understand the fundamentals, the solution is simple. Anthony extended his hand. Thank you. Thomas accepted, his dignity quiet but unmistakable. But the moment didn't end there. Come with me, Anthony said suddenly. I have an investor meeting in 90 minutes. We're presenting a new thermal regulation system for quantum computing. I want your insights. Thomas frowned. I'm hardly dressed for an investor meeting, Anthony smiled. That can be fixed. Reynolds called bespoke on Fifth Avenue. I want a full suit, ready in 30 minutes. Reynolds blinked. Sir? You heard me. If this man just saved my car with pencil lead, I want him beside me at that meeting. Within the hour, Thomas emerged from bespoke transformed, tailored charcoal suit, beard trimmed, hairstyled. To the astonishment of store staff, the homeless stranger now looked every inch the brilliant engineer he truly was. Appearances deceive, Thomas said quietly. Exactly the point, Anthony replied. At Nexus headquarters, CTO Sophia Reyes recognized Thomas instantly. Thomas Johnson? The Thomas Johnson? Your quantum thermal designs were revolutionary. He just saved my apex, Anthony said proudly. With pencils. Sophia laughed in delight. That's brilliant. Graphite nanoparticles, of course. Why didn't we think of that? Together, they entered the investor meeting. Anthony introduced him. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Thomas Johnson, inventor of the quantum cooling system that revolutionized aerospace engineering. Tonight, he saved my $4.2 million car with pencil lead and ingenuity. The room buzzed with disbelief and respect. Thomas listened to the presentation silently. When invited to comment, he spoke for 7 minutes, outlining 3 critical flaws, proposing elegant fixes, and sketching modifications that would boost efficiency by 34% while cutting costs. The investors sat stunned. Then came the flood of questions. 2 hours later, all had pledged increased funding. Anthony turned to Thomas, eyes shining. You've just changed our future. I offered you a consulting role. Now I want you as director of engineering. Name your price. Thomas shook his head gently. It's not about title or money, it's about something bigger. He unfolded papers from his pocket, sketches drawn on discarded newspapers. These are patents I've developed while homeless, solutions to problems your industry hasn't even identified. Imagine what's being lost, not just with me, but with every overlooked genius in shelters and on the streets. Anthony leaned in, astonished. What are you proposing? An innovation center, Thomas said firmly, a place to recover wasted talent, where overlooked brilliance finds resources, support, and opportunity, regardless of appearance or background. You and I together. Anthony extended his hand slowly. Thomas Johnson, you have a partner. The story closed with reflection. The patents Thomas had scribbled while homeless were worth more than the hypercar he had just saved. But their real value lay in transforming an industry and a worldview. In our world, the narrator concluded, brilliance often hides in unexpected places, dismissed by prejudice or circumstance. The true measure of society is not in the success of the privileged, but in our ability to recognize genius wherever it exists. The crowd that once dismissed Thomas now applauded him. The billionaire who once barked, "Don't touch my car," now stood beside him as a partner. And for Thomas Johnson, the man the world had cast aside, it was only the beginning.